topic today is growing up psychic. Hi, I'm Laila White from Singapore. I created this platform so we all can connect and exchange ideas and stories, similar stories. It'd be great if you guys start commenting, or if you like this show, please share. I will get to your comments at the end of the show, hopefully. I am so psyched up because I have, play of words. I have Johanna Carroll here with me. She is one of the most incredible person I've met in my life. Her mannerism and uplifting vibes always makes me smile, and very, very intuitive and very, very smart. So I'm going to welcome Johanna all the way from San Diego, USA. Johanna, welcome to my show. Why don't we let you introduce yourself, because you're so eloquent and so beautiful and so stable, like me.
Well, first of all, thank you. I love doing this, and it's a little late here in San Diego, but I always find time for good stuff to do. So without taking the whole time to talk about myself, you know, when I was very young, I was raised in a very traditional, very, very strict family, which I think a lot of people can relate to. And I just remember at a very young age, maybe 7, 8 years old, sitting in church, and I would be listening to the priest, and I'd say, no, anything to anyone, because I was, you know, being respectful. But I always had this desire. I knew I could pray, and I knew that I could talk to God, but I wanted a conversation. I wanted God to talk to me. And that was a desire I had for a long time. So when I was 10 years old, and I don't know why I remember this. Well, first of all, when I was a young child, I was sleepwalking all the time. My parents always had to take me and put me back to bed. And quite a few years ago, I'd say over 20 years ago, I was interviewed by a woman, a phenomenal psychologist from the States. And she wrote this book called Your Sixth Sense. And she interviewed 48 of the top intuitives in the United States. And basically all of us were sleepwalkers as children. So we had this common thing. And then when I was 10 years old, I remember getting up in the middle of the night and being consciously aware of what was going on. And I'd sit by my window, and you know, I'd be talking, and I wanted a response, and something happened. There was definitely something other than me looking out the window. Well, it scared me, obviously. I'm 10 years old, so I jumped back into bed and put the covers over my head. But the desire to have the conversation, or the dialogue with divinity, as I call it, was always there. And as I started getting older, very unusual things started happening. I never really shared them with anyone. But I remember after my second son was born, I was in my early 20s, very unusual things started happening. In the middle of winter in Connecticut, where I lived, all of a sudden I would hear music coming from nowhere. And I'd try to find it. There was no radio on. And then all of a sudden I'd be walking through the house, and I'd smell like, it was like I was in a garden. But there were no flowers in the house. I had no perfume on. Then some early in the morning, I would hear knocking at the door. We'd go down, and there was nobody there. So these started, the conversation, I guess, started. I wasn't quite sure what to do with it. And then I went to a psychic when I was in my 30s, and she looked at me and she said, you should be reading for me. And I said, I don't even know what you're talking about. Wow. So then she started giving me information. She said, you're going to move to California. You're going to be this amazing teacher. And I thought, oh my God, I don't want to teach kids that are screaming and yelling at school. You know, I completely misunderstood the message. She said, no. You're going to be a spiritual teacher for many, many people. I sort of brushed it off. But the reality was, a number of years later, after I got divorced I was around 35, 36 years old, I did come out to California to visit a friend. And we went down to Mexico for a weekend. And I remember sitting on the beach and praying and meditating. And I had an amazing experience. I felt like I was lifted right. And I just knew that I was in this place that wasn't of the earth. And the main thing, Laila, that I felt was wrapped in love. I loved, because in my, please help me, I needed a direction. So when I came back, or came to, I guess I'd been crying. I had tears. I was flooded with tears. And so from that moment on, I knew that I needed to come back to California, because that was the start of my spiritual map. So I basically quickly came back to California, and I think the first week, and this was 32 years ago, the first week I started meeting all these people, and I started studying with them and basically developing what I perceive as to be a natural gift, and being trained and developing it. And then, I was working in corporate America at the time. And one day I had a very unusual phone call from a woman that I had briefly met at a party. And she said, I want you to do a reading for me. And I said, I don't do that. She said, that's not what I heard. Because I was dating a man at the time who had asked me for some information, which I gave to him, and apparently he went back and told all his friends about this. So anyway, she said, I'm going to call you tomorrow. This is the time I'm going to call you, and this is what I'm going to pay you. And I said, I can't take any money. No, you have to be paid for this. Anyway, long story short, I came out of that with telling her that she was married to a bigamist. And the reason why this was so valuable was she was going through a divorce, and her husband was trying to take her child away from her. And that started everything.
Wow, what a journey. So I don't want you to change anything. There's technical issues with the camera, but we can still hear you very well. So you still look good, so no problem, Johanna.
Okay, I'm glad I look good.
Yeah. What an interesting journey, yeah? And you're still at it now. I just want to ask you, were you freaked out? Were you freaked out when you found out that you were psychic? And how did you feel about that? I know that it was overwhelming, because nobody will give you the direction.
I never really used the word psychic, but obviously that's what I was. And of course, that word in itself brings up a lot of fear. But the reality is the root source of the word psychic comes from psyche, which is Greek, which means of the mind. So then it became trendy to use the word intuitive, et cetera, et cetera. So, many people have said, well, who are you? What do you do? Response is, whatever you need me to do or be. So I don't necessarily like to catch that label, but I think I knew that I had an awareness of a world that existed beyond this, because it started to speak to me. And then after I started really getting my training, it's like a child that's born naturally gifted to play the piano, but they still have to study. They have to take their gift and make it their own. And so that's what happened. I studied for many years. And so this one incident of telling this woman that she was married to a bigamist, she went back to an attorney. They hired a private detective, and he was a bigamist. So from there, we were invited to be on a television show in Los Angeles called The Other Side. And that just started everything. I mean, it just came, people started calling and lots of referrals, and it just organically grew. That's what happened. And I'm saying, theater. I obviously left corporate America and devoted myself to really helping people.
Yeah, I know you help a lot of people. You help me a lot. The other thing I want to ask you, so when in what form does it come in? Does it make sense? Like, do you hear? Is it in vision, or is it thoughts, or is it voice? I'm trying to understand. I'm sure we all want to find out how the what do you call it? The revelation, is that the right word? I'm just throwing out words, Johanna. So yeah. Please forgive me.
Who knows the information? So traditionally, a person is either clairvoyant, clairsentient, or clairaudient. So it's French. So it means clear seeing, clear hearing, or clear sensing. So you either see, you hear, or you just know. And to do all those three, the clairaudient piece, actually hearing what I call those whispers from eternity, people actually talking to me, that's the woo-woo part of it. Seeing things written, like it's like I'm watching a movie. I can make it go backwards, forward. Manipulating time, I guess, is another way. You know, it's a quantum physics experience. So some people call that heaven, the universe, God, spirit. It's an experience where all information is held. So for me personally, all those things are happening sometimes individually or at the same time. The science has told us that only 20% are clairaudient naturally. So for me, that's how it's coming in. It's coming in like a movie, watching a movie.
What experience that I've had with you? Okay, Johanna, what I need you to do is to restart your camera while I talk and then come back on. Your computer. So while I share with the audience, go ahead and restart your computer while I share with the audience which I experience with you. Can we do that, Johanna? Can you hear me?
Sure, I'm going to restart it right now.
Okay, perfect. So when I speak to Johanna, it's an incredible experience. She will, what I love about my experience with her is she would talk about things that are going to happen to me, and it's also free will. And she's always uplifting. She never says that's not 100% all the time that this is going to happen, but she shows she would get messages, and it's like she said, you know, it's like watching a movie, and it's all free will. It's either you follow it or you don't follow it. Her incredible gift, I think it's gift. It's almost so in tune. It sometimes scares the living daylights out of me. So hopefully she will come back in. But I have a few experiences that I've shared with her. Like I had an experience where, what do you call it? I had brushing my teeth once, and I heard, it was a daytime. So normally, you know, we all think it only happens at night. I was brushing my teeth, and then I heard such a strong voice, and I'm not going to explain whether it's in my head or I wanted to hear it. I heard my father's voice while I was brushing my teeth saying, you know, sorry, hang on a second. I'm proud of you. You did very well. I'm proud of you. And I just literally lost it. Like I'm gonna lose it now. So those are experiences that I've had. And also there's another experience while waiting for Johanna. I remember sleeping and dreaming about my doorbell being rung at early in the morning. And I opened the door and I saw my sister Shirin. I saw her standing and then crouching down and says, you know, my Yasin, which is my uncle, passed away. So I woke up and I went back to sleep. I think a few hours later, hey, the doorbell rang, and the same scene happened. So I'm not sure whether those are coincidences. There's so many other stuff that has happened in my life. I'm not going to claim that I'm psychic, but those are things that has happened that brings me closer to questioning that is more to this than just meets the eye on earth. I am still waiting for Johanna. I'm sorry that you have to listen to all this stuff that I'm blabbing. She is still not here, but Natasha is asking, have you ever met with skeptics? How do you deal with them? So as soon as she comes back, we will have her answer that. But for me personally, I really don't care. I truly believe there's something bigger than us. I don't think we are the only person here. I think that we get messages, and that I'm really intrigued by something beyond us. I'm not sure whether that's the right word, but I also am. Is it mostly gut feeling, or is it just we are in such need to know the future that we psych ourselves up into this? So with the skeptics, for me personally, I really couldn't care less what they think. I have to live with my life, and I have to make decisions whether to believe it or not. And I think for me, the most incredible situations that I've had in my life comes in dreams, comes in almost sometimes it's in your head that, you know, it's sometimes common sense also, common sense whether you should be doing it or not. She is still gone. Let me just put Bill on the spot. Bill, what about you? Well, have you ever had this kind of experiences? Yes, of course. Hopefully Johanna will come up.
Okay. This is really, I'm really being put on the spot here. But yeah, what we're doing is we're waiting for Johanna to come on so I can kind of explain here, because she's having a technical issue on her side. When she comes back, I'm out of here. Okay. I wasn't even prepared for this, but I've never really had an experience with a psychic situation, except for one time. And I remember it was here in Singapore. And I'll tell you, it's with me, I've always wanted to have an experience. I wanted to always have an extraterrestrial experience, or I wanted to have a beyond experience, but I've never had it. And I think the reason why I've never had it is because if it did happen to me, my life would change, and I would not. I couldn't hang around anymore as a mortal. I'd want to go to like Mount Olympus or something like that. But okay, as I mentioned, there was one experience that I had when I lived in a black and white house here. The former landlord, he had died. Oh. And so I've since moved out of that. But I remember at that time, it was interesting because the hour that he died, all of the lights just shut off. The entire power grid just went down for about 3 minutes. Wow. And at that time, the housekeeper says, I won't mention his name, but he says, yes, he's just telling us everything is okay. And I thought that gave me the EBGBs at that time, because like I said, I've never experienced anything like that, but I've wanted to. And I think if I did, it would probably freak me out, because you asked Johanna, did it freak her out? Yeah. I think it would freak me out so much that I'm not allowed to have these experiences, because I don't think I'd know how to handle it. Really, I mean, it would just overwhelm me. So that's the reason why listening to what Johanna is saying and listening to your experiences, I think it's fascinating. And what's even more interesting is I'd heard, and I don't know, Laila, let me ask you a question so I can get out of here. Does these psychic experiences, Johanna's back, do these psychic experiences happen more often with women than men? You're back on. Yeah, I'm not sure. So I'm not sure. Maybe because women are more intuitive. I'm not sure. But let's ask Johanna. Johanna, sorry, we lost you for a minute. So the question is, women more have this kind of experiences more than men?
Yes, and the answer is, as you said, they're more intuitive. However, I'm noticing in this age that we're living in now, we're seeing a lot more men that are getting in tune, and men actually naturally would refer to it as my gut. My gut's telling me this. So. Right. tapping into it. They're just using another language. They're just calling it, something different. But women, I think men really live maybe from their heads a little bit more than women do. Women live from their emotions. So I always say that the heart is a pillow for the soul. So emotionally, it's more of a natural thing. For instance, a lot of women, if something, they may wake up in the middle of the night and feel like something's wrong with their child. Telling them to wake up. It's just this. And I think men, we're seeing that word intuitive being used a lot more in business now. I know my male clients are very, very focused on developing that aspect. We have that masculine, feminine, we're all trying to balance that. But generally, it's more natural for a woman. I do feel it's changing though, which is good.
So what's the difference between gut feeling and psychic intuitions? Whatever the gifts that you have, what's the difference between that and gut feeling?
Well, there's a thing known as pure intuition and warped intuition.
Okay.
So that gut feeling, we say that pure intuition comes within the first 3 to 10 seconds. It's just that I know something. But then the mind will go in and say, yeah, but did I really hear that? Did I really see that? We double check ourselves. So now we're in the ego. So you can't trust that necessarily, but what you can trust is what you are sensing, feeling, hearing, even if it's in the gut. The first 3 to 10 seconds, that's the pure message. What most people do is they try to figure it out instead of saying, okay, is there more to that message? I do this thing called the 3 waves of bliss. So first you get what I call the hit. That's the intuitive sense, feeling, knowingness, gut. And then for me, my process is, okay, is there more to that message? And then the next piece, which is probably the most important, is there an action I need to take?
Wow.
And now I'm really starting to get more to the conversation, the dialogue. Some people just stop with that first hit and they don't know what to do with it. So we really can have a dialogue with divinity. And this is really what guides our life to a much calmer, peaceful, more beautiful place, being aware.
So my question is,
religion,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was thinking all the major religions about prophecy and, people coming and talking and being the prophet or the sage, whatever, but we're living in a very advanced age, right? So we do have the ability to have a private, personal relationship with the divine so that we are being guided from a much higher place, and we just kind of need to get out of the way and pay attention. And of course, the world itself, it's very distracting. Very distracting.
So how, like for you received this gift, so you took you years to it comes naturally, I'm sure it does, but how do you perfect it to where you want it to be? I'm asking you for you, that's happening to you. How do you like take courses, or do you work within yourself? I'm just very intrigued with this.
Well, I always had a big curiosity. I mean, at 7 years old, I wanted to talk to God and I wanted him to answer me. So there was that inner knowingness that I could do that. So first of all, I believed that I could have the conversation. Second of all, I trusted that at some point it was going to happen. And so when it started to happen naturally, it was like, okay, I think I've plugged in a little bit. How can I plug in further? So to answer your question, for me, I just always trusted what came naturally. That first intuitive hit, I never, ever questioned it. Someone said to me, how do you know? I said, I trust what the universe tells me as the truth. So that's number one. It's not necessarily believing in a belief system. It's believing that I, as a child of the divine, can have that relationship. I don't have to wait until I die to go to heaven. I can live heaven on earth right now. So to answer your specific question, yes, I studied, I trained, I fine-tuned my intuition so that the radio tower got bigger, started coming faster, more clear, more succinct. I never really questioned it. But I feel that, and then as I studied a lot of ancient teachings, and then of course I've traveled the world and gone to sacred sites and meditated there, and some unusual things have happened there. So, I do feel, I lived in Sedona, Arizona for about 12 years. So, I put myself into sacred sites where that intensity was really huge. So being out in nature, for instance, for anybody that's listening or watching, you really want to connect. It's a place to do it. So I don't do that necessarily anymore. Now I'm the one teaching a class. At some point, I feel, even for myself, that the student leads the teacher. And so our job is to help one another and really love one another and trust that we have the answers. And so for myself, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, of course it does. Of course it does. So it's a lot of stuff that I'm learning. Let's talk about your programs. So you are also a teacher for your programs. Can we talk a bit about some of the programs that you have taught or are teaching?
Yeah, well, there's a number of courses that are online. There's tons of podcasts. I had my own radio show for 9 years. So if you go to my website, which is johannacarroll.com, you've got a lot of teaching that's not going to cost you anything. And so those radio shows were a lot of metaphysical, spiritual teachings. There were a lot. I always had a guest. Some of them were celebrities. I had a big office there for many years. But, they're just like you and I. Same stuff. Right. They just are celebrity status, right?
Right.
So a lot of the things are there. Then I have some other courses there's a great course called 4 Steps to Heaven. And I think it's only like $8. I mean, I really price this so anybody can really afford this. And that's a 4-part course on really developing your intuition and understanding your own level of awareness and where you are today and setting goals for yourself. But it really is a developmental tool. It's all about awareness. And then I do have, I have some audio programs that, besides the podcast, and I don't know, there's probably 100 podcasts that are available. And they're all on YouTube, by the way. You can go to YouTube. So one of the things that I did recently that was very popular, and it's actually even I think it's on my homepage, is how to be spiritual at work. Because that's so hard. I mean, I lived in corporate America, and it's like, it was a little bit of a battle, politically on some level. So how to be spiritual at work, relationships, that's a big one. How do I remain happy and whole, and how am I attracting the law of attraction? How am I manifesting the right partner? I've written 4 books. My last one was called The Lost Art of Loving, and that really addresses what I call the progressive path to understanding your own self-love and love for another, and how you can have that. That's a really tough one for a lot of people. I say that relationships are the new temple of learning, and sometimes we get to learn through negative and positive experience, but it's all about understanding yourself. In a lot of the sacred sites around the world, I remember at Rennes-le-Château in France, I did a Mary Magdalene tour, which was very similar to the Da Vinci Code. And I remember going into this part of the garden, and there was this song that basically said, know thyself. And actually in Egypt, in the mystery schools, this was also something that was taught, know thyself. So I think our journey in life is by knowing yourself, you embrace your own divinity. This is not sitting in a church and praying. This is living a really happy, fulfilled life. It doesn't mean you can never have sex again. It's being successful, but it's redefining what that means for you. So being fulfilled, being happy, being joyful. It's chaotic in the world right now. So that inner temple and knowing thyself allows you to really create a very healthy modality for yourself and build really beautiful, loving relationships with people you work with, your friends, your family, your lover, your husband, your partner. It really becomes a journey of joy. So a spiritual journey is a journey of discovery. And there's so much on my website that's available and a lot of it, like I said, is free. Go on YouTube. There's a library of podcasts on the website. There's courses there. I do private training, everything's there. So I'm really hoping I can affect a lot of people's lives. I mean, if somebody said, what's your legacy? And my legacy is to really have people love themselves so they can be happy. Pretty simple.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, very true. The two things, if I may interject here, the two things that you taught me, I had a struggle, I remember, about meditation, because my thoughts of meditation is, sitting down still and just not having any thoughts. But you're the one who taught me that I am an active meditator. I need active meditation. So the discovery that I had was, as I shared with you, was the MRI. At the MRI, I knocked out for an hour and a half. The banging, it puts me into a state of meditation. And I saw the people that passed on in my life. That was an amazing experience for me. The other thing that you really taught me is to know myself and not be held by guilt and to conform, because I'm not able to conform, and this is who I am. And as much as I like to accept who I am, there are people that I care about that might not. I care about a lot more about them, and not many, very, very few, let me state that. But on that, what you taught me makes it a lot easier for me to understand. If they love me, they love me anyways. And those are really powerful things that you have guided me. So I call you my spiritual counselor.
Good. There's so many names. Mother.
Yeah, but I'm sure.
Let's go back to that.
Right. Go ahead.
Because people have this meditation. I have to, om for like an hour. And for some people, that does take them deep. But an active meditation can be dancing, it can be walking, it can be singing, it can be eating a great meal, it can be out in nature. Somehow you shift and your perception changes. And so for anybody that's listening to this, what's it like to watch a beautiful sunset? What is it like to listen to a child laugh? What is it like to be in a beautiful garden and really connect with how beautiful the flowers are? That is a form of an active meditation. Meditation means one thing. And, we're all very unique souls. So, no, it's not one size fits all. So, in a lot of the sacred books, they talk about the whirling dervish. Well, these were the dancers that would whirl and whirl and whirl and twirl. You go to, in the Buddhist tradition, the prayer wheels, they're spinning the prayer wheels. They're moving energy. So sitting and meditating, and you can do that with trying to not make your grocery list and really feel that there's something going on. That's beautiful. Sitting in a bathtub with some candles and just being quiet. It's a form of meditation. So don't get trapped into that I have to sit in a yoga position for an hour to be meditating. Sometimes it just doesn't work for people.
Yeah, that's so true. Do you think that nowadays, because the chaos that's happening in the world, a lot more people are trying to connect and be more divine? Is that what now? Do you see that a lot of people try to connect to you more to find sense in what's happening within themselves and the world?
I don't know if it's necessarily connected to me. I mean, I'm always busy, which is good. I am seeing, though, that there is a trend to have a deeper meaning in life beyond the material world. My personal belief that the earth is a new dimension, and that science has actually supported that, you know, the earth has changed its spin on the axis, which is huge. So based on that, we are living in a new reality. So what our norm used to be is changing. So for instance, I'll tell you, in California, we just had these unbelievable fires. In Mexico, we had these horrible earthquakes. I have some friends that live in the Caribbean. They've lost everything. It's kind of biblical in nature. If you think of it, you have fire, water. We had locusts in Trinidad. We've got earthquakes. We've got every earthbound catastrophe happening, and everyone's saying, what's going on? The earth as an organism, a living organism, is changing. So emotionally, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, this is going to affect us. So what does that mean? Again, where's the deeper meaning in life for me personally? What's valuable and important for me? And I really think everyone essentially wants to be happy. But the way you reach your happiness in this age that we're living in right now is different than it would have been 5 years, 10 years, even last year. So I think people are on a quest to understand that. And I will tell you, in the younger generation, I have a lot more younger clients call me, and I think that they're already connected in their own very unique, different way. And technology has allowed us to do some amazing things. So I think for me, I would say, you know, I've always had a baby boomer. The baby boomers, you know, they're at that age that they, you know, we went through the 60s, we went through revolution, you know, we went through all the craziness of the Vietnam War and all these things. So they've always been sort of on a quest. But now I'm seeing 2 or 3 generations that are coming up. And I know for myself, I'm actually personally training a lot of these younger people to go out and do their work as some unique way. So I think there's definitely an abiding desire to say, I'm not going to do this craziness anymore. How do I do it? You know, what's the first step? And the first step is to acknowledge that you'd like to change.
Right. But I want let's go back. Go ahead. Sorry, I keep interrupting.
Let me just say this one thing. I don't interrupt. No, you're not interrupting me at all. A spiritual person knows who they are, and they know who they are not. So cognitively, that's boundaries, but that's not just spiritual. That's as a human being. You know who you are, and you know who you are not. That's the first step.
That's fantastic, because I have this list of the question to ask you, what is spiritual person? So you nailed it. What does it mean? Because there's so many words that's being, you know, like meditation and spiritual. So it's all thrown out, and people are trying to grasp, because it all sounds so good, but no one actually knows what it means. And it's just the simplest form. And everybody's trying to be good and find happiness within themselves. So they grab into, meditation. Okay, I'm going to sit. But it doesn't work for each person. And all I see of meditation pictures and videos is somebody sitting down still. And nobody has come up so eloquently to give different versions, and also as a spiritual person. So for you, when does it, like, we go back to how you receive all these messages, and you say you it's like watching a movie, which is amazing to me. I can't wrap my head around it. So when does it shut down for you? Like, when do you say enough? Like, when sleep-wise, do you sleep? Or you have that Philip Stein sleeper?
When I first started this, I didn't. It was crazy. And I had people calling me at 11 and 12 o'clock at night. I was like, wait a minute, I still am in a human, I need rest. So this is, for me, it's I turn the switch on and I turn the switch off. And it's really interesting because I've noticed even with a lot of my students, the minute they decide, okay, I'm really going to go for it, it's like standing under a waterfall. It's too much information. So you really, you know, one of the things is to understand that you are in control of this. And so for me, obviously, when I have an appointment and I'm going into a session, I have a whole ceremony and ritual that I do that puts me into what's called a theta brainwave state. And this is where your intuition is wide awake. And so I start getting information, as you know, before the person calls. So by the time they're calling me, I'm already telling you this is what I saw, this is what I'm being guided to say. And then when I'm done, I turn the switch off. So I'm basically saying, you know, thank you for all that you've given me, for speaking through me, using me as your divine messenger in the middle, so to speak. And I'll see you later. Because I used to be woken up at 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. I actually wrote a whole book like that. And I have to tell you, it's pretty exhausting. So for me, it's plugging in. It's like turning on a lamp, you know. I turn it on, I turn it off. And I have to say, the spiritual family that's working with me on the other side are respectful of that. Sometimes they show up when they want me to really understand something. I'll give you an example. My son was dating a girl, and we kind of had some of this feel right. And I'd say about 6 months ago, as I'm coming out of sleep, as I'm still in that theta state, I saw her face. And I saw written big, huge letters, liar. And so, okay, this is clear that something is happening here. How do I call my son and tell him this? So, you know, one of the first laws is a law of non-interference. Until he said to me, something is not right, then I had permission to tell him. And then he said, you know, you're right. And she's lied about this, lied about, anyway, long story short, not together anymore. Thank you. But that's another thing. You can receive information, but until you have sacred permission to give it to that person, that's a no-no, because you're interfering in their journey. And I know when I lived in, when I first moved there one day, and this woman came over, and I have all these messages, and I said, I didn't ask you for these messages. I'm having my lunch. So I felt kind of violated. So that, you know, there's a code of respect and honor, and if you are working with someone and they're constantly telling you stuff that's scaring you and bringing you more fear, you've got to really, you know, is that really healthy for you on some level? Nobody should be. You know, I was taught from the school of love, and that does fantasy. Kindness, love, respect, honor, understanding, wisdom. So it's important. And my younger son, who lived in a Buddhist monastery for many years, said to me one day, one thing to remember, be humble. And you have to be humble. Even though there's a gift, it could be taken away, you know, in a heartbeat. So I've tried to remain humble.
I don't know you long enough, but yeah, I know that that's one of your highest and your biggest quality. And also I was talking, when you were not on TV, I was talking about free will, how you helped me by, you know, channeling me to what you see. And then you say, but it's all your own free will, which is fantastic, which most people don't understand that. So let's talk about free will and make some, our audience understand what free will is.
So we all have a divine plan. And in that divine plan, There are some things that we have agreed to before we have come back into the body, reincarnation. And these things I refer to as the absolutes. Some people call it fate or destiny. These certain things are going to happen. And a big percentage of it is based on free will. You taking an action, the potential and the probability is there. But if you sit on your hands and don't do anything, they call the law of action. If you don't do anything, you're not going to change your life. So if you are really intuitive and you're connected and you're trusting your intuition or your gut, you'll know what your free will choices are, if they are for your best, highest, and holiest good. And they're practical choices. So free will is your ability to make a choice and take an action on something that will change your life. And sometimes those free will choices are a repetitive pattern, to me around. Okay, I'm going to do this. For people that have dated and, choosing the wrong person. Okay, well, wouldn't it be a good idea to get off the merry-go-round and have a different choice that may be different? So, karma plays a big part in free will, and karma's unfinished business. That's really all that it is. So we create that in this lifetime, other lifetimes, that's a whole other story on some level. So free will, and lots of people think they don't have choice, but you do. So even in your outside world, if something is negative and you don't feel you have any control, you do have an inner world where you let it control you or not let it control you. So it's like someone telling you, you're too fat, you're too this, you're not smart enough, everything that's wrong with you. But there's a little voice inside of you that says, that's not true. That's not who I really am. And, maybe at some point in your life, maybe not in that moment, you won't believe what they're saying. You'll believe more in your own truth, and you'll make a choice to live your life differently. So your free will is an opportunity to make a choice so that you'll grow as a person and evolve as a soul. Because that's pretty much what we're here for, to grow as a person. So that's the cognitive piece of it. Maybe that's the psychological piece, if you'd like to call it that. And then there's the spiritual part of it, which is to evolve as a soul.
Wow. So a lot of skeptics, Natasha asked while you were gone, have you ever met skeptics? How do you deal with them? So there's also questions where people would want to ask, like you talk about karma, you talk about reincarnation, people that are of different religion, mostly Christianity, Islam, they don't believe in reincarnation. They don't believe in karma. What are your thoughts on that?
I have met skeptics. I'll tell you a funny story. I was invited to a very wealthy area in San Diego. It was the first time I'd sort of ever came out as a psychic spiritual teacher. And this client, she invited me to this party, and I was a little nervous. And so she went around introducing me to everyone as her psychic. So we came to this older gentleman. He was very nice. He's very elegant. He said, "Oh, you're her sidekick." And I said, "Well, I guess you could say that." I said, "But I'm her psychic." Every single person at that party walked away from me. I felt completely rejected. So I went out on this patio. So I had a group of skeptics, probably a person. But it was interesting because they all turned away from me. No one talked to me. I felt completely rejected. And I went outside on the patio there by myself. But one by one, they came out. They were curious. Well, what do you really do? And it was interesting because they said, "Well, you're basically just helping people." And I said, "I feel that I am an instrument to help them at that moment in time whatever it is. And sometimes it's just common sense. And so it's not like, I'm this psychic, I remember once I was invited to Los Angeles to do a meditation with a group, and some of the people I knew and some of them I've never met. And talk about skeptics. So here I am in LA, in Hollywood, and before I started, this woman said, well, who are you and what do you do? And I was about to, and so one of my clients said, oh, well, she's my spiritual counselor. Another person said, no, she's my psychic. Another person said, she's my auntie. Another person said, she helps me make business decisions. So I said, well, what does that tell you? Whatever you need to be at that moment in time, that's what I am. And everyone kind of relaxed, because I wasn't trying to shove any teachings or anything down anybody's throats. I had a bishop from a Catholic church who was a client. And I had a lot of nuns who were clients, and a lot of Hollywood people and a lot of just, regular people in business. So I feel that my job is to guide a person for their best, highest, and their holiest good. And I only had, in the 32 years, I had this woman that called and she was hysterical. And she said, I'm so scared to talk to you. And I said, then you shouldn't talk to me. You shouldn't talk to me. I don't want to take your money. And, I just want you to go have a good life. And I gave her some breathing exercises to do. And I said, if anything in life is going to frighten you, you shouldn't do it. Dicks. I've had a lot of people question me about how it works. And, I think they just get comfortable with it. I'm not trying to convert anybody one way or the other. And, yes, I do have, I have a lot of people from the Muslim community. I have a lot of people from the Jewish community. I have born-again Christians. I think I've hit every religion that there is. So skeptics, not so much anymore. Are they out there? Of course they are. And maybe because they've had bad experiences before. So, and to be really honest with you, after 32 years of doing this, if they want to be skeptical, that's their right to be skeptical. Then I'm not the right person for them to talk to. And I actually have worked with clients that I'll say, okay, I am no longer the right person for you. I'm going to give you the name of a really good psychiatrist who I think would be better for you. So I'm not attached to keeping anyone. I mean, the greatest joy for me is when someone doesn't need to call me anymore because they figured out life for themselves. Yeah, there's a lot of skeptics out there. When I first did that TV show in LA, it was funny. That was such a long time ago. And the host, before we went on camera, he said, don't use the word psychic. Do not use the word psychic. He said, too many people, and I said, fine, I won't use the word psychic. He said, you've got to promise me. So we get on air, and I'm like prepared not to use the word. And he comes up to me and says, so are you a psychic? And I said, I didn't think I was supposed to use that word, but some people do call me that. He was more scared of it than I was, obviously. But that was funny. Anyway.
Can someone be trained to be a psychic?
People can be trained to develop their intuition. Some people are more naturally attuned than others. It's a big responsibility, to do this work because you're giving people information that's changing their lives. You're making decisions based on this guidance that's coming through you. So if someone is really in their head and they're a control freak and they have a lot of fear, it's not going to work because their channel is, talk about warped intuition. They don't have a clear signal, to be honest with you. And maybe that just doesn't work for them. Can you be trained to develop your intuition? Yes, you can. And I actually do have a program called Get Psyched that I've been doing for 15 years. I decided, all this training that I did and all these amazing teachers that I studied with, and many of them aren't even alive anymore, I needed to pay it forward to other people, because this information is universal. It doesn't belong to me. It doesn't have my name on it. So I thought, I'm going to put this out there. And so I created this Get Psyched Intuitive Development Training Program, and many people have used it for different things. For business, I had this one girl, this was so interesting. She called me and she said, I hear all these children singing these nursery rhymes, and I don't know what this is all about. So the bottom line is, the nursery rhymes were the way the children were connecting and calling her. And these children turned out to be children that had been kidnapped or abandoned or abused. And so she really went on a quest and started working with some detectives to really help them solve some of these crimes with her developed intuition. She did a great job. Really nice job. Yeah.
So besides seeing other people's, helping other people's, story or whatever they need from you, do you see your own?
Sometimes it's really hard to read for yourself. However, I do feel that there's a need for me to be protected. Or for instance, that whole thing that happened with my son's piece of information that's important, they're going to deliver it somehow. I do remember when I was living in Sedona, I was dating this guy, and it wasn't the greatest relationship for me. And he came into the house one day, and in a shadow, I saw this woman with dark brown hair, and she had something going on with her skin. And I just said, who's the woman with the brown hair with a skin condition? And he said, how can I date you? It's like, all my secrets. And I said, well, if you're going to date me, you really can't have any secrets. Why would you even want to try? And so it was funny, because I was at lunch one day, and this woman sat next to me with brown hair and a skin condition. And I looked at her and I said, do you know Richard? Yes. And who are you? And I said, Johanna. And she said, oh, I know all about you. I said, yeah, well, I know all about you too. That was the end of that relationship. Oh, don't bother.
Oh my goodness. But that must be, wow. I mean, that must be hard to get your own stories, like your own clip.
No, it is. I will tell you the beautiful thing, not just for myself, but a lot of my peers. For instance, right before 9/11, a lot of us started having dreams of planes crashing into buildings and fires. So what do you do with something like that? You start to pray that it won't occur, or you start to pray that it won't be as bad. And it could have been, it was horrible, obviously, but it could have been a lot worse. So I think the universe gives us these catastrophic images sometimes so that we can energetically pray and make them less catastrophic. So, even on big earthbound stuff that's happening, I'm to be really honest, if I'm getting ready to go on a trip or on a plane, I kind of check in, is there anything I need to be aware of? I always protection prayers. But as far as a lot of personal things, it's hard to read for yourself, particularly if you have a heart-to-heart connection, because that may influence, what you're getting. So, and right. I don't really feel the need for it right now, to be honest.
So what one thing that you've got a lot of clients, you've got a lot of people that what's one thing that people don't know about you?
Oh. One thing that people don't know about. rejected me completely. My birth family has nothing to do with me because of this. My older sister died 10 years ago from cancer, and I was told to stay away from her funeral. I had sent her books on death and dying that were intended to comfort her, and they were mailed back. I haven't seen my younger sister in probably over 20 years. It's a very strange relationship, so a lot of people don't know about that, and I don't say it for people to feel sorry. It's I feel like I was there to stir up the pot, which would have helped them on some level, but they chose not to. But my extended family is I'm more close to my extended family, obviously, than my birth family. So I still have a little bit of, gee, why wouldn't they want me to be in their family? I'm a really cool person, but wasn't meant to be. So a lot of people don't know that I'm completely rejected by my birth family. Mm-hmm. It's just too bad.
Yeah, too bad.
That's not healthy. And from a psychological, that's very unhealthy situation. So maybe on some level I was protected from it. Who knows? Yeah. Interesting journey, that's for sure.
The other question I want to ask you is, so whenever people look at somebody that is so calm and collected and very wise, right? But sometimes I see you have a glass of wine. Do you?
I don't have a martini, of course, or a glass of champagne, of course.
Exactly. So that's the best part of you, is that this is what your gift is, but you also have your own life, your own personality. I don't know whether that's the correct term. So let's talk about it, because because like I said, the meditation you taught me, the know who you are you taught me, and this is something that you need to help us all with. Because once we associate people of wisdom and, the higher level of divine state, we always think that they don't get angry. Do you get angry?
Are you kidding me? Ask my husband. There's no room in the refrigerator because he has 20 bottles of carrot juice. Here's the thing. I feel that I am a human being that has a very unusual job. And yet there's this other part of me, that goes out and plays tennis and goes to dinner and travels with her friends and her family. And so that other aspect of me is always present, but I am by no means perfect. And the other thing is, for me, I hear a lot of sadness, and I try not to absorb it. But there have been times, that I get off the phone and I just cry for that person because I could feel their sorrow. But as far as being a regular person that's going out there and, doing her thing, yeah. And I will tell you, I don't announce to the world in a social situation, what I'm doing. A lot of the people that I play tennis with or whatever, I think they sort of know, but I don't go around talking about it. I like to keep my social life and my professional life separate. And I think in this kind of business, I'm basically running a business. I get very, very close to my clients. So I remember when I first started, I want to go to lunch with you, I want to go to dinner with you. I had to create myself because I felt like I was always working. So, I think I'm a regular person that has a very unusual job, and I'm quiet about it. And if somebody, wants my help, I'm there for them. But I like to go out and have fun and, just do the regular stuff. I have my own stuff that I'm dealing with, just like everybody else. I think the good thing for me is I know that if I turn it over and let go and get out of my own way. It's everything, whatever is intended to be will be. So that's not necessarily a religious belief. That's just a belief in myself and my own relationship with the divine. So yeah, I yell. No, do I yell? No, I don't think I yell. I used to yell. Probably because I'm older. It's too exhausting. Tiring. But no, I like to have fun. I mean, you know, I'm 70 years old now, and you know, somebody said, "Well, are you ever going to retire?" It's like, I don't know why I would. You know, I love what I do. I'm helping people. But yeah, I still have that other part of me. So I got married 5.5 years ago after being divorced for 29 years. So that was a big change, big adjustment. So I had to apply all my spiritual tools to be married.
Wow. I would never insult you by saying you look fantastic for your age. I think you look fantastic anyways. It's the truth. But on a good note, I did, with your advice, I did get off that, what do you call it? Merry-go-round. The merry-go-round. I finally jumped off the merry-go-round.
I'm so proud of you. Good for you.
But without your help, it would never
repeat. No, that's good. You're doing really good things, Laila. You should be very proud of yourself. I mean, you're bringing a lot of information. You know, you're doing your healing work in your own unique way. And that's what everybody needs to know. In your own unique way, you can do that. Even if you just smile, start smiling at people more. You know, you're touching their hearts in a new way. So I'm glad you're off the merry-go-round. How does it feel?
Feels good. It feels more focused. It feels lighter. It feels more me, you know, and the realization of discovering not to be so fearful of things and just relying on me.
That's good.
So,
yeah,
so it's a good thing. So I wish we had more time to speak to you with this kind of, we've never had this kind of talk show where, Bill, am I right? Where the host, I mean, not the host, the guest is so calm, you know, and so,
I'm 70 years old. I mean, really, seriously, at this point in my life, what's to get upset about?
No, but you are the wisest person I've met in my entire life, and you've got so much knowledge, and you are so kind and so patient. On that note, your latest book is called The Lost Art of Loving. I'm going to put it up, your contact, also how people can get in touch with you. Johanna, thank you so much for being on my show. I don't have celebrities, I just have friends. And this is just a startup show, and I'm so privileged to have you and Bill too. Right, Bill? Say yes.
Because we know that Bill is a celebrity in his own world. He is, and so are you. You're I didn't say that to be rude. You wouldn't be doing the show without him.
I know. Any last words that you need to pass on to the world who's listening at the moment?
Yeah, I think the wise words I can leave everyone is just to stop and take a breath and don't let the world define you. And just get clear on that you do have an opportunity really to live heaven on earth. You really do. But only you can decide what that's going to look like. And so the first start is to know that it's available. And then it gets interesting after that. So, but it's been a pleasure. I really want to thank you. I love doing these kinds of shows, and I kind of miss doing radio, but it was lovely to be your guest. And I'm sorry about the computer glitches and all of that, but so thank you, Bill. But thank you very much, Laila, and I really do wish you the best of luck with everything that you're doing, including this show. I think it's a great service to a lot of people. And if you ever want me to come back, I'd be happy to do that too.
Definitely. I'll hold you to that. Thank you so much, Johanna. I'll see you really soon.
Okay.
On that note, bye. Thank you. Thank you for watching the show. if you guys have any questions, please keep on sending the comments. And also my email is lifebylaila@gmail.com, and I'll see you next week. Bye, guys.